Hi everyone, I'm Robin Gully.
I'm John Justin.
We are your Ward 2 council reps here to give you the council recap for the 27th of November 2023.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, mostly going to be in the open council work session today, and we'll start with, we had a presentation from Neighbors Inc., who is just closing out their 50th year of existing. Hopefully you're all familiar with them. They do a ton to help people in our community. I think one of the things that should be brought up is that obviously people know that they do a food shelf. They may know that they do some clothing assistance, but there's actually a lot more that they do as well. The financial coaching that they're working into, helping people through, by small grants and things like that. So, I mean, really just, I've helped with some food drives in the past. I think we talked about the possibility of maybe doing another citywide food drive, which we did before, competed against South St. Paul and won. We might do that again. Just get some donations. Mostly what they're looking for is obviously people knowing that the services are there, kind of spreading the word to if you know somebody that might have some assistance needs. I mean, minor or major, whatever it is, to kind of connect them to them. And then obviously they're looking for help and participation from the cities. I think that we've historically and will continue to be a city that really has always worked really closely with Neighbors Inc. and they're very valuable. Their split of usage was pretty much a even split between us, South St. Paul, and Inver Grove Heights for the number of people they serve from each community. So it is really very localized. I think there's like under 1% that comes from outside of, 2% Mendota Heights and then 1% from outside of that area. So it is really a lot of times the most effective charity organizations that you see tend to be the ones that are the most focused on the group that they work with because they can be more efficient. And Neighbors Inc., I think, has done a fantastic job of that. They have a ton of great volunteers, one of whom is my mother-in-law. So hi, Sarah. You do a great job. But yeah, I think that we'll just continue to work as hard as we can with them. And obviously there's always time for donations. They are, unsurprisingly, given the cost of food and things, now more than ever, their need for donations probably has gone up. I can't remember the figure, but I think it was like a 300% increase in the last few years of use for the food. And so if you do have things that you can donate, if you're in that comfortable position where you can do that, I'd highly encourage looking at Neighbors Inc. They've really just been a fantastic organization on every level, every time I've seen them do anything. So.
Well, and I'll just add a couple of things. First, the food donation, they make it really easy. A lot, if not all, of our local grocery stores have a box where you can just drop things right in there for Neighbors Inc. So if you're picking up some like canned goods or like
pick up a couple extra and
just pick up a couple extra and throw them in the box while you're walking out, it really helps them out and helps out folks in our community. And the other thing was that the presentation was by the new president, I think, of Neighbors Inc.
Or executive director.
Or executive director,
Yep.
yeah, of course. Dawn, whose last name is evading me right now. But one of the things that I thought was interesting is that part of the reason that she was excited to come in as ED of Neighbors Inc. is that she comes from a background of helping folks to get into better employment and into, so with like not just economic development, but like personal
financial development.
Yep. So they're looking at adding a lot of new services in that regard in the next few years.
Which is deeply needed.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
Needed. Absolutely. The next thing that we talked about was the Delaware Trail Project, and we had a presentation from Dakota County. Thank you to Bryce, who came out and gave us this awesome presentation. Basically, the most important things to know about this presentation are that the Delaware Trail Project is really about getting kids safely to school. It has the added benefit of being a good way for our entire community to get around on Delaware. Right now, they're focusing on the section between Mendota Road and Marie, with the idea of going north of Marie in the future. But you can look at those plans on the council packet if you're interested in seeing what they're planning on doing. But effectively, they're working on creating safe routes to school. This is the area that goes on Delaware that goes right past Two Rivers High School. So a lot of kids from the neighborhood, walk toward Delaware and then walk towards school on Delaware. And so creating safe routes, and also we've talked about this a lot before, but the new plan creates sort of natural traffic calming measures, which we really appreciate. And I know that I personally am always trying to be really mindful of the speed limits and everything, but I can say that sometimes, like since I've been on council and I've spent time talking to Ross about this, I've noticed our public works director, I've noticed that, you know, he talks about the fact that people go as fast as they feel like they're supposed to go on a road. And I've noticed certain places where the road feels really wide, where it feels like you have good visibility, it feels like you have a lot of space, and it can be easy to exceed the appropriate speed limit that we've posted. And the reason that we post the speed limits is because it's complicated work with the county that gets us there in the state, but effectively it's because those are the speeds that are considered safe for that zone. But I've noticed that, you know, even for myself, trying to be really conscientious, that it can be easy to go faster than the posted speed limit when it looks like you should be able to go faster. And so some of these traffic calming measures I don't remember exactly what we saw, but they can include things like adding medians, adding more trees along the side, making the road feel narrower, even if you're not actually narrowing the road. Those all help to sort of bring traffic speeds down. And they're much more effective than the sort of like more, you know, they're much more effective than a lot of the other things that we think about as traffic calming measures that are sort of go-tos, like putting speed bumps in or putting like more signs in, or those things are actually a lot less effective than the ways that we can try to make the roads feel like you should be going slower.
Yeah. It looks good. I mean, it looks really good. And and next year, I believe they're going to look at planning for Delaware north of Marie and what that's going to incorporate, you know, trails or trail or whatever they can work out that actually, you know, has the minimal intrusion, but gets us more access to that pedestrian access.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have feedback for the county, if there's anything that you want to, like, you know, if you have an interest in finding out more, you should check out the council documents and also check out the work that the county is doing on this trail project to learn more about, you know, about it, and to, you know, let them know if you have anything that you want considered in that. And then
home improvement area policy discussion. So this is a mechanism that's actually established by the legislature where cities can actually issue bonds to allow and it's specifically townhomes, condominiums. It's people with basically housing associations, and that allow these housing associations to do important structural projects. This isn't like, hey, we're going to add a swimming pool. This is like, you know, parking lots, roofs, siding, things that you know, cost a lot of money. And housing associations often are sustainable in the long term, but are not sitting on a bankroll where they can just take on a project and pay for it out of pocket, you know, because of the people that live there, and it would be a burden to them. And so we were approached by I believe it's I think it's a townhome housing association, don't know which one, doesn't matter, about the idea of establishing an HIA, which we can do. And we had a discussion about this before, and it didn't happen because it didn't kind of pass through the housing association. And I would say it was pretty universally supported. You know, again, one of our strategic initiatives is to keep our housing stock in good quality, and this is a way that we can help. What is a more difficult situation than, like, if somebody has to go to their bank and pay for a new roof by getting a second mortgage, which none of us want to do, but it's a very different thing for somebody who's a single family homeowner to do that because of the scale of the project than, for example, re-roofing an entire townhome project, which is a ton of money, and even split over all of those people is going to be expensive. They don't have access to the interest rates they can get like a city can, And in fact, a lot of times it's a fairly, I think, predatory interest rate when it comes to housing associations, is my understanding. And so this allows them to do things that otherwise really are going to fall by the wayside. And the problem is eventually what happens with that is that, like everything, if you put things off, they don't get better, they get worse. And then you end up with, properties that are difficult to sell for the people that live in them, properties that are unappealing to people that might be trying to move into the area. So really this is a good long-term idea, I think, for the city. And we won't be initiating these. We're not going to go out to these associations and say, hey, do you want to do this? This is going to be something that's very much a reactionary basis. If somebody comes to us and asks for it, we can, go in, and there's a whole process, and it has to show actual need and not everything. It's not just like writing a free check. And the other important thing is that by statute, this does not affect the city's bonding capability. It's not taken into consideration for that. So it isn't something that will hurt the city's availability of bonds, interest rate on bonds, any of that stuff. It's pulled completely apart. So there's really no negative effect on the city in the long term or in the financial sense, but it does allow us to assist people in getting these properties maintained and up to par, and in the long run, to be totally selfish, wildly increasing the potential taxable value of those things, which again makes everybody's property taxes go down the more that we can spread it over people. So
it's good for our whole city. But and I'm not sure, you might have said this, but one thing that I wanted to mention is that these are loans, but what we can do is, so it's not grants to these homeowners or to these like associations, but they are loans, and we can set a low but a manageable but reasonable interest rate for the city to recoup funds. So it's not money that is coming out of our tax.
Yeah, and we can
actually pay for this.
And we can add on fees to cover administration and things like that. So it's really a net zero. Sure, if there's staff time that's spent on it, it's allowed for us to reasonably include that staff time as part of the principal, and so that is also repaid. So it's really not, like I said, the financial impact on the city is negligible if there is one at all, but it could bring some really good results to things that are hard to accomplish otherwise.
And one thing, we've all heard the news stories in the last few years about condos and townhouses and apartment buildings where, not even apartment buildings, really condos where there's been deferred maintenance for so long. And then sometimes really tragic, awful things happen. But we know of, just because of our work on the council, I would say, we hear from sometimes condo association, folks who live with condo associations who have deferred maintenance in some really big and serious ways, and are struggling to come to consensus with their association and with their board on how to pay for these things. And so this is it's not a get out of jail free card. It's not even a grant, but it is a way for them to access the money in a longer term way. So with a bank loan, for example, they might get a high interest rate, and they also might have to pay it back in a time frame that's not.
Or they may have to have a principal lump payment at the beginning, which is not affordable, and so this is why these things sometimes don't move forward.
And so this is a way for them to access the funds in a way that's much more financially available and manageable for the folks who live in the condos. And so if you live in a condo, because I know that there are folks out there who have reached out to us for support in the past, and this has been a really challenging thing to sort of try to navigate helping on. So if you live in a condo where there is significant deferred maintenance and you think that that something like this might be helpful for you, would love that. Now would be a really good time to reach out and let us know, and we can let you know as soon as we have a way.
We'll be coming back with more specific policy. This was sort of an examination to say, do you want to talk about this? And I think uniformly the answer was yes.
Yeah, so it's not available right this second, but now would be a good time to talk about it, because it would be helpful to know, where are the places that we might be.
And how much desire is there for this policy too? And if we write a policy, the great thing is we can write a policy and it can be used once, and then we've got it as a policy.
Yep.
And if it's used 10 times and it's good, that's great. And if it's used once, that's also great. But once the policy is in there, then
do it.
future things, it's a much easier thing to know where everything stands when you go into trying to figure out if it's going to work for you. So there you
absolutely. And then we talked about the 2024 budget again. I know we've talked about this actually in our last few videos, but there were a couple of things that our city manager, Nate, pointed out that I wanted to bring up, just to mention that some of what we've accounted for in our budget, and it's, not a huge amount, but are making our systems just better, making them work better, making them more efficient and effective for folks in our community. So there were some things that were very simple, but I think could be really helpful. Like, for example, we're going to invest in a system for online business and rental licensing.
go.
So great, if you want to get a business or a rental license, in the coming year, probably you won't have to come down to City Hall and apply for it. We're going to invest in geolocators. We're going to invest in, or maybe we do already use a program, but we're going to convert it to the Cloudr program called Track It to track work, things that need to happen in the city. We're going to do a staffing study to make sure that our staffing is as effective and efficient as possible, and that people are in the right places doing the right kinds of work. We're gonna try to make sure that the city is getting the best insurance. So do a study for insurance. Our engineering team in Public Works is all going to go through, or folks who need to are going to go through CAD training, so that we don't have to contract out consultant work for every time we need a CAD project done for things like mill and overlay on roads, and so that will be really helpful for that, because we won't have to hire it out of the city. We're going to really explore using native plantings in the city, and this will come up more, I think, in
Springtime.
Nate said in March we will have a longer discussion about this in council and in the city, but we're going to increase our sewer cleaning and sewer vacuuming, which I think I understand what that means. I think it's what it sounds like.
It sounds gross on the face of it, so I assume that's what it means.
Yeah. And our city manager, Nate, mentioned that some of the things like some of the software that we're investing in will help us to actually be able to use an app to know when a sewer was last vacuumed, so you don't have to keep it on a paper, sheet. So we can do it more often and do it more efficiently. We're going to work on decreasing vandalism in our parks, and we have a great park staff right now, and we're working on some creative solutions that I think you'll hear more about in the near future. And then we're still considering the possibility of bringing the West St. Paul Dome under staff. We've had that contracted out for a long time. A lot of us are interested in the possibility of bringing that under city management. So,
and I think the takeaway on a lot of this is that a lot of this is about increasing efficiency, and so there's some expenditure in the front end. But for example, with the CAD thing, to go back to that, if we moved our small project planning to where we could do it all in staff, that takes a huge monetary burden out of contracting out all of that to external contractors. So if staff is paid as they're paid, and they are doing things that otherwise we're paying external contractors for, you're going to start to see that budget line dropping, because now as they get more comfortable and they get more training and we continue to train staff, they can do more work within the city. And a lot of that is this sort of thing, like with the geolocation, being able to know where and the example that was used is there's a little pole you walk around with and you stick it here and it sets a geolocator. And that is they're going to do that to every manhole. And thus they can take a look at the map and they can see this manhole was inspected at this point, this one is inspected at that point. And so you can automate and trigger that general maintenance. And people don't think about this, but hours upon weeks of staff time every year, I'm sure, goes into scheduling all of that stuff. And so, you spend a little bit of money on software and your return on investment is huge, and it goes on until the software becomes obsolete, which is going to be a long time from now. So a lot of this is sort of explanation of why, why we have these budget lines that are expenditures, but in the short term, not even the long term, but in the short term, are going to start to turn over some of the expenses that we might be seeing right now and lowering them, which again makes the whole budget process easier. And yeah, so there's that efficiency thing seems to be a real focus, and I think it's a really good idea as somebody who has a business that probably could be more efficient in a lot of ways. I understand what can happen when you suddenly go like, oh, if I had just done this thing 5 years ago, I would have saved so much money on this dumb thing I've been doing, and like all that printer ink and printer paper and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's the same sort of idea, just on a much grander scale, and I think it's a good direction. I'm happy to see it.
And that was basically it for Open Council work session, which I know, we promised we were not going to say that this video was going to be short, because then it never is. But we're at 20 minutes right now.
Which for us is good.
Pretty good. And I'm just going to say, we had a council meeting after that, and we actually didn't have anything substantial on the council agenda, except a closed session to talk about our city manager's evaluation, which of course it was a closed session, so we can't.
You just heard
talk
everything
about
you can
it.
hear about it.
But we will have something to say about it on the consent agenda for next time. But we promised that it will be on the consent agenda, but we will pull it off to make sure that we talk about it to the extent that we can. So that's all I can say about it.
Yep. And then we adjourned. And then we go home.
So that's all we've got for you tonight.
All right. Well, thanks so much as always.
Yeah. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, a great holiday weekend with family and friends, and we're looking forward to the end of the year here as well.
Absolutely.
So, if there's anything you need, give us a call.
You know where to find us.
Yeah. Take care,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye-bye.